No Nation. Welcome into another episode of the Renegade Rundown. And Lord have mercy, I can't lie to you, man. You don't know how things go in these certain things. Certain ones we're 100% positive on. This is one we are as confident as you can be with one of these top recruits without, knowing that somebody's just as silent and it's done. Some late whispers came around this morning from the University of Florida. He's went there quite a few times, quite a bit of Florida stuff, on his Twitter profile, things like that. The common knowledge around it was him, Florida, and Alabama. Florida State guys on pins and needles, scared to see that Florida hat. I think maybe he pulled a Florida hat out at the beginning and then didn't put it on, this and that, messed around. But when he pulled off that pullover shirt, I can't even remember what he was wearing now. But when he pulled all that off and I saw like a red and white, I'm like, Ohio State? Like, what is that, Deshawn? I can't see. And he goes, Arkansas. I know it was on his list, but it's like one of those things where people like a coach at, Billy Bob Bareback State, so they put it on there. They use another school's hat for mojo or whatever. But no, I guess Arkansas it is for Tavion Wallace. Not so much that Alabama or Florida fans control about as far as this miss, but how are we feeling? Immediate emotions, Deshawn.
Shocked as you are, man. It caught me off guard because, like you said, we heard some rumblings from possibility of Florida. Florida State was still in a great position. I mean, his recruitment is not over, but it's just a shocker that he chose Arkansas out of all schools. You figured that they were finished like fourth in his recruitment or fifth, behind the likes of Florida State, Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. And he chose Arkansas. I mean, I can understand. I know there's some things going on campus there that they're moving towards being more all in. I don't know about the football side as far as coaching, but as far as NIL, Arkansas is invested, and I'm not saying that's the reason why, but they're invested in getting high profile players.
Yeah, I missed the front part of that, but imagine talking about Arkansas and they got money from Sam Walmart. Is that what's going on there? They got a new head coach. Like, holy shit! I think we both just said like 20 times.
Arkansas, yeah.
Arkansas. Where did that come from? Guys, we're trying to add Vince from Garnet and Old. Looked like he was having a little issues getting set up, but he should be joining us momentarily as we react to the latest news here in the recruiting world. Something about covering this, and when it comes to recruiting, you're not gonna get everybody. You're just not gonna get everybody. Yeah. When it comes to linebackers, it's a position that specifically we haven't had a ton of success in the Mike Norvell era. Which has largely been the Randy Shannon era here at Florida State. You bring in Ernie Sims in a support role this summer. You hope that would help a little bit. You got Ethan Pritchard, who has been locked down for a long time. And, I mean, we were floating on air just last week. We were pretty sure that we were going to get Zaydrius Rainey-Sale and Tavion Wallace, or at the very least, one of the two. So you end up missing on both. The one in Washington, totally understandable. We knew that was going to be a giant. Vince keeps disappearing for some reason. But we knew that was going to be a giant issue with him. So it's like, all right, we missed out on him, but it's, all hands on deck. Whatever money they were going to give to Rainey-Sale, make that call, up that package, whatever the case may need to be for Tavion Wallace. And let's make this thing happen. You start to hear the worries about Florida, Alabama. We know that these guys can compete with anybody. Like, if you lose them to there, like, it sucks. You're going to get told on the internet, but you kind of understand it. This Arkansas one came out of nowhere. It seems like, as much as it is on the staff, and we can get into that, it's kind of on us. Like, I guess I should have done better. Like, for a guy to go to a small school like this, like, it's a big deal, like, to beat out Florida State and all these things. Like, somebody somewhere knew this was happening and was sitting there with a shit-eating grin, like, "Oh, watch this shit right here." But yeah, Arkansas, maybe the Pig Suey sites had it and were, saying all along we wrote them off. But man, oh man, I did not see that one coming for a kid from Georgia.
Yeah.
To go, it's just a random freaking place to go. Who's the new coach they hired?
No, they don't have a new coach. They still have the same coach there. I was saying that their investment, as far as their NIL and their investment into their athletics program through basketball, is they're going into a new era in how they're going to be all in with what they're doing. So I can understand that this kind of move is that kind of, that kind of stamp on where they're going with the football side of things. Basketball wise, they've already started to invest, and we know their connections, I believe, to Walmart and maybe Tyson, if I'm not mistaken. But I know they do have an investment in they have an investment into the other sports and into their complete athletic department. I'm surprised by the program. I'm not surprised at the investment that they've done though, or that they
Yeah,
made.
Sam Pittman. I remember now.
Yeah,
Everybody was
Sam
talking
Pittman.
about like he could be fired.
Yeah.
Just like a year or two ago. So yeah, boom. We
Yeah.
were talking about this a little bit off air, and before the show. There's not many linebackers left on the board. We can pull up the offers and who they've got offered out there. My take on it is like we were going to take 3 linebackers, but that's because there was 3 linebackers that we really, really liked on the board with the defense we run, the 4-2-5, with the guys we get out of the portal, with the young guys we have now. We got a pretty good young crew. Like, it's not the end of the world. I don't think they're going to go reach for a linebacker just to add a second linebacker. But curious, you might think a little bit different on that. And who is that next name? So I'll start looking at it for that offer list. You offer your opinion on that.
Well, playing devil's advocate here, I mean, to be honest, it is kind of a track record. Since you said they won't do a little reaching, well, it is Randy's track record, to be honest. He reaches on some, and some he gets that are diamond in the roughs. Randy's a great developer. I mean, without a doubt. It's been a little shaky in the area of getting a high profile level linebacker coming out of high school
Now,
ranks.
I would have to disagree with you on that. Randy make some evals that maybe you don't agree with, and you look at it and say, like, that was a reach. But when I say reaching, I mean going in and grabbing a guy that is not evaluated to the top of their board just to grab a body, like as far as reaching. Like Randy really, but like these are like the problem I had with him in previous classes. He just didn't go after the top linebackers. Like, there may be an offer on the books, but he just wasn't going after them. I feel like, I don't know if anything was said behind closed doors, but like this particular class, he finally actually went after them. Maybe it's just like, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe this is just like, some kind of post-traumatic stress to where I just have forgot on the guys he's whiffed on. But it just seems to me like, this is just the first time he really offered the top guys. But maybe that's just me.
Well, I mean, I could say recently within the last 2 cycles, yeah, he hasn't offered the previous 2 cycles before this one, that he hasn't gone after the big ones. But if you follow his track record from UCF to Florida, he has not really gone, like you said, after big names, or he's always looked for a particular type. We've said it numerous times on the show that he has a type. He doesn't look at a star, and I'm not mad at him for that. I'm not even, I'm not disagreeing with any of his methods. But that's what I was saying when you was telling me that. I was trying to say that he's a great developer. That's not the problem. The issue is what everybody wants to talk about is getting that high end linebacker, because one, either he doesn't go after it or he does, and we have situations where we don't always come out on the top end in the room. But the portal's still there, so I mean, we do have a good group of linebackers still in the room now with Lundy, Cryer's there. I mean, this loss is not over. We still have the 4th of December signing day. So, I mean, it's still recruiting. So you still recruit the kids and you still try to flip. That's where we're at. As far as the board, I don't really know anything about what's left on the board that isn't already currently committed.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely gonna have to try and pull up that offer list real quick and see if there's anybody on the board. I'm of the mind, again, you know, maybe they find another guy, maybe not. But this just really hurts.
Yeah,
It really
it
hurts.
does.
The style of kind of recruiting, as I think VC Noel is ready to jump on. What's up, my man? How we feeling?
Hey, how are you, man? Not too good after that. Not too good after that.
Yeah.
Goodness.
But sorry about the technical problems I had here, but I just won a bingo game, and then that was exciting. That was exciting because I'm old. I play bingo. But then all of a sudden I see Arkansas guys. What's going on with that?
Shocker. It's a shocker, man. To say the least.
I don't think it's over. Just to put that out there.
No.
It's, you know, I didn't really think Arkansas.
I gotta stop you. And so Vince is from Garnet and Old. He came to stop in literally live from the bingo hall. I just heard 073 in the background.
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of background on that, man. Because at this restaurant that I'm at, my daughter actually works there, and she's the one calling the bingo numbers. So I came here to support her tonight, and I ended up winning a game. And it's not like a nepotism thing. I actually legitimately won. But yeah, I had to step out a little bit. But anyway, Arkansas, I didn't think that was really on the board. And so when I see something like that, that tells me that this is probably not over.
That is a very good call. That's probably where we were going to go next, kind of discussing this pain that we're feeling in our hearts. That was something that Deshawn mentioned, so I'll let him go with that take first.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. I was saying that this recruitment is going to go into December, as well as probably a few others. They're going to continue to cast the net and try to flip. Is what I was saying. Looking at the board, it's not a vast board. They had their targets from what we could see, and I would be, in my opinion, I just believe that they're just going to continue to try to flip guys. As simple as that. I mean, we're all shocked right now, so it's kind of like getting caught off guard. Even if it was the rival, you know, it was a possibility, but this one kind of like threw you for a loop with the particular program.
Yeah, just the shock value of it being Arkansas. But yeah, it's going to be hard. Like, there's a reason that teams like that struggle to recruit at a certain level. There's a reason these top 100 guys go to the same 8 schools every year and things of that nature. So it's not just going to be Florida State. It's going to be Florida, Alabama, Georgia. All these schools are still going to be pushing. So the chances of him ended up in Arkansas, you know, I thought it would have been like 12%, like 2% going into this thing. So maybe it's up to 30, 40%, but you still would think that maybe somebody else could get him. And that's a great point also, just because all these recruitments do that. We talked about that ad nauseum on this show, but I try to curtail it a little bit just because we got to fill time. We got to talk about the board and what's happening now. Who's committing now? Who's going to commit on early signing day and things of that nature? But yeah, Zaydrius Rainey-Sale very much could possibly get flipped. There's plenty of time. Gavin Nix could get flipped. You know, if Pritchard's locked in and you only want one more linebacker, maybe you don't go reach for a guy. Maybe you go reach to flip a guy. Or something of that nature, or then we know what we can do in the portal. You know, it begs to the question of the certain position on the staff and the whole kind of, you know, we're not going to kiss your ass, do all this modern stuff. I'm going to coach you up and all. Like, we've seen what Pat Surtain could do. So it's tough. How do you stand on that whole situation? Where does your meter go on that, on the Randy Shannon situation and kind of this recruiting? You just let it roll off your back, or are you joining the mob with the pitchforks?
Me, I mean, I'm not a pitchfork guy. So, you know, Randy Shannon, if he was going to go, he probably already would have been gone. And the fact that he's doing other things outside of the recruiting pretty well, I think that's what keeps him on board. This is an unfortunate turn of events here with this particular guy. But I don't think, you know, when we were talking about, is this going to stick or not? Eventually the newness of, you know, quote unquote, shocking the world wears off. and we get closer and closer to the point where the kid is going to go to the school that he's going to spend a lot of time at, and he's going to want to win at, and he's going to want to be surrounded by guys that want to win as well. And I think at that point, then I mean that's why you don't stop recruiting a kid, right? Something swooped in the last minute, the way it looks to me, and whether that's money or not, I don't know. But the Randy Shannon part of it is it's just slow and methodical, right? It's not whiz bang, exciting, and all this other stuff. But I'm pretty confident that if he wasn't doing his job, he already would not be here.
Facts. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Also, we've got the new rule with these analysts, you know, and the level that they're allowed to coach on the field and things nowadays that changes stuff. I think there's a possibility you could see some kind of restructuring to an assistant head coach, or maybe take one of those off-field roles that now are on the field, and you put a glorified, you know, recruiter in that tight end or, you know, linebacker spot if they do want to do something following the season. But I think in the larger picture, the continuity, the guys, you know, Juice, Blake Nicholson, all these young guys we've got in here, Sean Murphy out of the portal. I think there's plenty of talent there. It's like you don't have to bring in 10 guys every year. We run a 4-2-5, like literally 3 or 4 guys. That's what you need to get through the whole year. So yeah, not going to overreact, but also not going to close the door on it. It's not the end of the world. There's still a chance to get some of these other linebackers back on board, and we do have Easton Pritchard. But we can get into the rest of the week because we do have way more big time commits to look out for, and exciting dates and things of that nature.
Exactly. What's the next commitment date? Is it tomorrow?
I don't think we have anything on the 3rd. We can circle back if not. But tomorrow we have 2 big ones. Well, not 2 big ones. We've got Peyton Joseph and Hollis Davidson.
Yeah.
Peyton Joseph, I'm really good on. I'm really high on him between us and Memphis. Who knows? I mean, Tavion Wallace just went to Arkansas. So Peyton Joseph could go to Memphis as well. But the other one being Hollis Davidson, I really don't know what to think about that one. Some people say we're going to take 2 tight ends and he's all null. But just for whatever reason in my gut, I just don't know that the staff has is Chris Thompson going to push hard enough to get a Hollis Davidson over Auburn that's pushing really hard, and another team, I believe, that jumped up into it recently, already having Chase Lofton in there? Is he the belle of the ball, as I like to say? It is the issue Florida State has with getting multiple of these guys. So curious on your thoughts on that. Is he going to be a Florida State commit on the 4th or no?
Me or you asking me? Okay. Well, for me, I'm confident on Peyton Joseph. As far as Hollis Davidson, that I'll still stick by what I said. I believe we get both tight ends. That's where I've been. But my level of confidence, I would say I'm not as necessarily confident simply because of the Chase Lofton commitment. But I do understand that in the offense, you know, we do run a lot of 12 personnel. So we do use 2 tight ends. We run multiple sets like that. Both of them could complement each other. So I wouldn't see why there wouldn't be a possibility of Davidson still being in play.
I would personally be shocked if we got him, only because I don't know how hard they're going to push to get him in. And, you know, for Lofton to jump in when he did, it was to me, it might have been almost like the first one to jump is going to be the one that they're going to be okay. Now that we got one, we don't necessarily have to put everything toward a second. If we do get a second, then that means he really wants to be here, and I'm okay with that too. And that, all the better, right? Peyton Joseph, I'm probably I would say I'm pretty confident in that, but after today, I may have to lower the tier a little bit.
Are you shaking? Is your confidence shaking in FSU recruiting, my friend? Just remember, Alex Atkins, recruiting Peyton Joseph.
Yeah. I have to be able to separate, right? And as a fan, because that's me. I'm just a fan.
Yeah.
It's tough for me to kind of put the emotion away sometime after being kind of, I don't want to say burned. I mean, we're in July, right?
Yeah.
But not everything is as rosy as we all like. Even though we were talking about George, you're talking about it, Chris talked about it, we're talking about it on our show, how these fireworks are going to be the most amazing fireworks we've ever seen, and blah, 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 blah. People, we don't get everybody. That's not the way the world works.
Yeah. So going into this, whatever, last couple weeks, Kevin Wynn, he was totally like, for whatever reason, I didn't think we were getting him. I thought people were being optimistic. We got that one. Tavion Wallace, I thought we were getting him. I thought people were being naysayers. So that's just how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
It would have been really nice to get 10 today. It would have been really nice to see where it would have went. But July 4th is coming, and I really have, regardless of whether it's both or one, pretty sure we get another commit. And I'm definitely with you guys and leaning towards Peyton Joseph on that.
Go ahead. So think about it this way. We didn't expect CJ Wiley. Nobody in the world expected.
That's right.
So you have to balance that with what just happened. And just like the Georgia fans are saying that recruitment's not over, and we all made fun of them for that, we are sitting here telling you that this Tavion Wallace thing's not over. None of this stuff is over. And even after it's over, you got to continue to recruit the guys anyway. So we're on this roller coaster ride 365 days a year. That's why we love the game. That's why we love the sport. And that's why I trust the staff.
Yeah.
Well said.
Excellent.
As far as names that we don't have dates, and of course, Josh Petty is August 12th. We've told y'all about that a bunch. There's some other names, though, that don't have dates that could pop at any moment. You just don't know. You don't know if Florida State's going to get them. You don't know when they're going to pop. But a guy like Ty Haywood, offensive tackle out of Texas, is still on the board. Lamont Rogers, another offensive tackle, still on the board. Ousmane Kroma, another 4-star running back, still on the board. Go ahead, Deshawn.
No, I was going to add to it once you had stopped. Byron Lewis, also Onis Conan Benny. You still got him out there. Also, I'm trying to think. It was one more name in the second. Clarity. Clarity hasn't made a decision yet, too. Yeah, Squirrel hasn't made a decision yet either. So you still got a lot of names still on the board.
Yeah, Ladarian Clarity, the 6-foot safety, right here out of Scambia High School in Pensacola. Originally thought to be pushing it through September, then maybe thought to be a little bit earlier. So we'll see what happens if he can pop. I would love to have him in the secondary. Like, we all know that Patrick Surtain has a type. It's more like Greg Thomas, a guy that can play corner the way he likes to at 6 foot and things. They don't really sign many just like straight up safeties. Some of these different guys, like the guy that the school Clemson was talking about. Oh, he's higher rated. Yeah, well, he's 5'11", 160. He could be great for somebody. Perfect. In Kentucky's defense, he might be that guy you need right in that defense at safety. But in our defense, we're going to get guys that are a safety, but you could see him in the slot, outside, all the different things. But I think Clarity's just to that level of athlete that I would love to have him. Also, Jabori Antone, the kid out of LSU. That's one that he could pop at any time. He could recommit, but that's a battle with LSU down the road. There's plenty to come, guys. Dry your tears. Don't be too worried. Max Redmond is coming up on July 9th. We've talked a lot about that. I don't know. I think Chris said that 4 DBs was the number the other day. I agree. I was thinking maybe two or three. But if we take 4, there's still a couple that we're not going to take. So just because you see us miss on a DB or DB commits elsewhere, that is it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
So just calm down. It's going to be all right. What I'm going to do right now, since this is, it's not as exciting, not as fun as the Chase Lofton one we did the other day where we got to celebrate and all those things. But it's still the Renegade Rundown. We'll throw the number up here. If you have any questions about recruiting that we haven't got to, or any subject, now is the time. Speak now or forever hold your peace. But Vince, I know you really get into the conference realignment stuff and follow all that stuff and have fun talking about it. We saw some, kind of vague tweets from Josh Pate and folks recently. You saw Mark, I keep wanting to call Mike, Michael Alfred did a vague tweet the other day of the kebab, the FSU kebab. Josh Pate goes out, I think it was Josh Pate, did like a whole segment talking about he thinks that the Florida State could be out of the ACC in July. August 15th is the date. We're past June 30th. The whole 7-8 teams can dissolve the conference by leaving that way. But as we move, July 2nd now, there are different ways. There's competition clauses. There's different ways that Florida State were to leave. And all of a sudden, as my phone alarm is going off here, there's different ways that it could break up. How are you feeling about that whole situation?
Waiting for the motorcycle to go by me here. I'm still pretty high on the fact that we're going to get some kind of news probably before the end of the month. And it's mostly because there's some people that we trust, right, that have kind of given us some heads up that things are afoot, right? And that doesn't mean that what we're going to hear is, Florida State is going to be in the Big Ten. I think we're going to be hearing things in my opinion, of the ilk that is, this will be Florida State's last season in the ACC, or Florida State's last season in the ACC will be 2025, right? So that's what I think we're going to hear. And then whatever plays out after that, it's almost like these are stepping stones. Like if everybody's expecting that we're going to hear we're out, we're going to hear how much we're going to pay, and we're going to hear where we're going to go all in one day this summer. That is not going to happen. And, we're going to have to ride this roller coaster a little bit, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to have at least a foot forward, and we're all going to be happy about that foot forward by the time the team goes across the pond.
Yeah. So just so everybody knows, August 15th, in order for Florida State to leave the conference, play in the Big Ten or the SEC or the Big East for that matter, they would have to announce before August 15th their intentions to leave the ACC. That doesn't, nothing else, as Vince was saying, just their intentions to leave the conference. If they do that after August 15th, then they'd have to play again in 2025. You'd be out by the 2026. That's kind of the two big options that we've said from day one on this channel. We're optimistic for 2025, but 2026 at the latest with all this stuff. As I see Jen pop up in the chat room, she unfortunately had a little bit of a medical accident. No big deal, but she won't be able to join us, I don't think, tonight. So you'll catch her, what's today? Tuesday. You will catch her on the Friday show. She should be just fine. No big deal, but we appreciate you hanging out and joining the chat. We probably could have used Jen, like, just giving us something to go on, because it really is tough, guys. We really love Florida State football. Want to come over here, be all excited about landing a commit, but you just don't get them all. You just don't get them all. But did you have anything you've seen, kind of in reference to conference alignment, anything that's piqued your interest here the last couple of days, brother? Deshawn?
Oh, I thought you was talking to no. I mean, I've scoured different timelines and looked on YouTube and seen many different of opinion from the Big Ten perspective all the way to the SEC perspective and within the ACC. And there's been a lot of different narratives pushed and things said, even to the point of the Big Ten not even having interest at this point. There's still the questions of AAU and all of those things being thrown on the table. And even to the point where I've seen some say even the presidents within certain universities are not necessarily on board with either one of the programs from the ACC. And I only speak to this, what you had said, Vince, was just we're at the point right now where we're just going step by step. And it is exactly as you said, we're just looking right now to handle one egg at a time, instead of all the eggs in one basket. as far as making the announcement whenever that date and that time does come. It was something I saw today that was actually it was one of the board of trustees members. It was an interview he did, and he was talking about some of the things that were going on between ESPN and did you happen to catch that, George? You know what I'm talking about? You, Vince?
I saw something today that looked like a repost of a video from a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Where Peter Collins had basically said we are being paid unquestionably low.
That's what it was.
Or something that I can't remember the exact words. But that was from a video from a few weeks ago. I think someone just kind of recycled that. So that's not new words from him.
Okay.
But they're still true words from him.
Yeah.
I mean, those words are not any different. I mean, and that's something that I think for the people that are saying, you know, the AAU is going to be the blocker and all these other things are going to be the blocker. The main blocker right now is that no one can really do anything of any substance or legally until Florida State is free. Like homecoming is on its way. The prom is on its way, and the prettiest girl in the school currently has a boyfriend, right? And so no one's going to ask this girl out legally.
Yes.
Until the prettiest girl is available, and so the AAU thing is of no consequence at this point, and I don't think it would be anyway. I think the AAU thing is old school. It's an old school way of thinking about that. And Lord knows we are not in an old school environment now.
Yes.
Right? The money's too big, and Florida State 2024 is not the same Florida State of 1983, right?
Yes.
There's all kind of research dollars. You know, the medical program is completely on the rise. We're talking, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars in research and more every year. Those are the kind of things. Forget AAU. That's just a stamp, right? That's just a stamp. What Florida State has in terms of metrics, and when we're talking about research dollars and a medical school and the medical center that's going to be built and all this stuff, that's what they're going to look at. They're not going to look at whether we have a tattoo on us that says AAU. That's ridiculous.
So what I will say is I agree 100%. They even came out and said as much. We would like schools to have AAU, but it's not a prerequisite. And they said it in response to this conversation about Florida State and other schools entering. So yeah, that's like, if you don't want to believe the president, that's fine. The guy also said they weren't expanding and expanded like 2 days later or whatever the case may be. They're going to say whatever they can say on that stage to get off the stage and there not be a controversy. But when it comes time to get business done, people figure out how to get shit done. So as soon as Florida State's out of the conference, they will get in. But as far as AAU status, yeah, like in the term that people use it, they don't really understand what it is. But it's going to be a moot point. It's kind of like the blue chip ratio conversation because Florida State is going after AAU status. They have done the specific things. People conflate academics with research, and they are like very important. Like you got to have, if you don't have good academics, chances are your research isn't going to be respected. But they are separate things that are tied together. AAU just happens to be, those are the schools that get, it's a pool of some $1 billion that they all get divided up amongst them. So it would be a big boon. It would be a lot more per year. But in order to get that, you have to be a badass research university to start with. Florida State's got that going on. They're working towards it. But if it doesn't happen until 2030, it doesn't matter. Because like Vince said, it's not some tattoo that you need. They don't have an AAU patch on their jerseys or anything like that. The SEC stuff, we can address it just because half the people in our chat really want to go to the SEC. So people love talking about that. I've seen there's people out there with pushing a kind of narrative that's where FSU is going to go. You could accuse us of saying the narrative is the Big Ten, but it's just all the clues and everything I've seen laid out in front of me. The one thing there that does really tie it is the whole thing that I talked about. Does them adding SMU, Cal, Stanford, does that does them adding those teams and then a FSU withdrawing, does that mess up that competition clause? Does that dilute the conference to where, you know, ESPN does this and does that, and the only chance that the ACC has to stay afloat is if they work with ESPN, and somehow FSU and Clemson go there? Like, I could see something like that coming. I haven't heard anything like that. But my opinion on it personally is just that I just don't see FSU getting in bed with ESPN ever again. Which, if the money was right, I guess they'd have to be crazy too not to. I mean, ESPN could eventually buy out Fox, but currently it just seems to me like, and I could be wrong, but Michael Alford, whoever else around FSU, they could change this narrative a little bit, you know, but it seems to me they're extremely happy with the Big Ten narrative. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
I think from the school's perspective in general, I think they would prefer the Big Ten. I haven't, you know, no one of any power has told me that. I just see the trajectory of this university, you know, in terms of research dollars and in terms of decline. You know, the university's been on decline too, not just the football program. And so I feel like they have eyes toward a bigger, larger picture than just, hey, let's regionally play with our buddies down the road. I think it's bigger than that. Now, if the SEC, I believe the only way the SEC is a player in this is if it has to be, you know, none of this BS about, you know, not a full share, right? It can't be anything like that. As a matter of fact, I think ESPN would have to wipe away anything that would have to be outbound from the Knowles to get out of the conference. Like, they would have to make it so sweet, such a sweet deal, that they'd be willing to bury the hatchet. And we can all say, you know, business is business, and when there's dollars involved, you forget the petty grievances and all that stuff. But we live in the South, people. There's grievances run deep, right? They really, really do. And if it ends up being the SEC, I'd say it's probably a 12 to 15% chance now at the most. Something significant happened for that to occur. Something significant, and that would be ESPN not wanting the Big Ten to have any kind of foothold in the South, and be willing to basically let Florida State off, maybe let Clemson out scot-free, full share, no problem, shell game. But, you know, they're going to run into problems if they try to do that from a legal deal.
Yeah.
I could not have said it any better. Any thoughts, Deshawn, before we get on to the next conversation?
No, I'm in agreement with Vince. I would just say that because I could see where you would probably have other members of the conference have grievances now because of that. And that's the only thing that I would add to it. Like some of your Wake Forests and like that, those universities would probably try to file suit themselves in a grievance over that if that was to happen.
Yeah,
I just saw somebody put Big Ten is trash. Big Ten is trash in the comments. I'll tell you what's not trash. The $80 million a year, the $90 million a year is not trash.
Yes.
Almighty Finn, man. That he's got the little Bart meme. He's from day one. He's been on the SEC train. Sorry, buddy. We'll see. Hey, and we know that you'll be right here to brag if it does happen. But no, it's I think it's exactly how Vince said it. Like, yeah, there's a chance it could happen. I think it's low. It would just have to be the perfect deal and kind of the only way for FSU to get out, you know, type of thing. It would have to be just a really sweet deal. When you look up the upsides, if Florida State's sitting there in an open market, they can either just be another one of the guys, or they can go be the belle of the ball, be the team in the Southeast from the Big Ten. Like, it's just, I don't know how to get across the upside of having Ohio State, Michigan, all these teams come visit Tallahassee. Like, think about if you're a Florida fan or an Alabama fan or something, but Florida State's just the closest team to you. Yeah. You're going to that freaking Florida State, Ohio State game. Just like, it's just the opportunities are endless, and you're still going to play Florida every year. You're still going to see 3 or 4 or 5, 6 SEC teams in the playoff each year. So it's like, it's not like you're going to see your regional kind of people. You're still going to see them. You're going to see them in the playoff. You're going to see them in rivalry games, out of conference games scheduled. When there's only 3 conferences, it's going to be really easy to decide where your out of conference teammates come from when there's only 2 in the whole damn country.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So whatever.
I would
whether
add
it's
to this.
SEC or Big Ten, go ahead.
I would add to this. We've sat here and we've watched many a game where we've questioned calls. We've questioned methods that have been used against Florida State sports programs over the years. And we want to go to the SEC where we think it's going to be sweeter. That's one question. You think the refs and the administration and all is going to treat us with open arms? Because it would be in a situation like we were forced the hand to get into the conference, and then they're still bitter over 30 years ago. How dare you spurn us for the ACC? Their fans are still bitter to this day. So I wouldn't want to walk out of basically a frying pan into hell.
Facts. We are definitely all in agreement on that. Another thing that happens a lot, we can touch on this a little bit just to have this little fun conversation about conference realignment before we move on. And somebody kind of addressed it in the chat. We won't call names and talk shit, but there's a narrative out there from certain people that, like, you know, the Big Ten doesn't want Florida State. They really want UNC. There's a group of people, another group that thinks Big 12 is a power conference. And they're already better than the ACC with Clemson and Florida State. When Clemson and Florida State leave, it's going to be that much better. And they're right up there with the SEC and the Big Ten. There was a funny meme last week, I think it was, where they showed, these 3 beautiful chicks with Big 12 up there, right there between Big Ten and SEC. And they had this fat ugly chick down at the end that was supposed to be the ACC. And it's like, I get you, whatever. ACC might be a fat chick with a pretty face. That's us and Clemson. But the Big 12 is right there next to us and a little bit farther down the line. That's not how it is. It's always going to be kind of less than when it happens. I've always said there's going to be a power 2, and that's going to be it. Whether there's one relegation league and the Big 12 swallows the ACC or vice versa, or you get 2 smaller leagues, to me, it's going to be the P2 and a group of. So even if you go SEC or Big Ten, like, it's almost going to be inconsequential, and that's going to be like an AFC and an NFC situation. Somebody brought up Vandy in the chat, and that's what made me think about it, and what I'm curious on y'all's opinions of it. Like, in the future, when you look down the road, 2026, now Florida State and Clemson have went on. They're in the Big Ten, things of that nature. The Big 12 got a couple ACC teams, but they've got nobody in the top 30 of recruiting. What's going to happen to your Vanderbilts of the world, your Indianas of the world? Like, how are you going to keep out, the Utah or the TCU or whatever team comes up? Say a team rises up like Cincinnati did. Like, how is there ever going to be a chance for the Big 12 or any other conference for that nature to make it up? Like, it seems like eventually the only kind of middle ground, the only way you can go is, like, if somebody gets to the level of a Florida State Clemson by being in the Big 12, if they make it to the playoff every year and win a national championship, they're going to be the same situation Florida State and Clemson's in now. They're going to be like, we got to go. We got to get out. And it just seems like those pitchforks are going to get turned on the Vandys and the Illinois or whoever of the world before it's all over with.
Yeah. Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, there are going to be teams just like there are now. There are teams that are achieving at a much higher level, that are making not nearly as much money as a bunch of other schools just because they happen to be grandfathered in, long ago when money wasn't as it is now. So yeah, there are going to be people that are going to be upset about that, but at that point, there may not be an avenue for those things to change. So, at one point there was the NFL and there was the AFL, right? And at one point there was the NBA and there was the ABA, right? And at some point there's going to be the power 2, and I think I'm a big believer at some point we're not going to care whether they're called Big 10 or SEC or whatever. We're not going to care. We're just not going to care. But if another league, the Big 12, the remnants of the ACC, whatever, starts getting to a point and maybe they have their own championship, right? And they have enough backing that kids are going to those leagues and they're becoming stars, right? And at that point, then the Power Two says, well, maybe we should talk about figuring out how to merge this thing, right? That's way down the road, but we've seen this movie before. We've seen this movie before, and you know, the Kentucky Colonels are one of the greatest teams of all time, and you don't hear about them anymore, do you?
Nope. St. Louis Spirits, all that. You touched on some older programs with the ABA, but yeah, just to back off your Vince, you're right. You can even go into the USFL. You know, you had a lot of rival conferences or rival leagues, and we still see it today. But just to get to the NFL model has been discussed already as where we're headed in college football, where you have the merger and you possibly even have a merger between the two main conferences as it stands right now. From my understanding is the Big 12, actually they're running their organization a heck of a lot better than the ACC is. And I think it's a little, we're kind of looking at it a little too early to think that they're going to fall to the wayside, because they're looking to pluck the ACC where they're not looking to get plucked. So you got to look at who's the one who's going to be ACC is going to be feeding. If we're saying schools like FSU and Clemson are leaving the ACC, or even North Carolina possibly down the road, all those other programs, who are we projecting them to? The Big 12. The Big 12 is not going to go away, and I believe they've got a contract coming up with where they could stand to make a little bit more money, where it will be more currently than the ACC is making now. So they're not going away. They're just they're going to be relegated to the wayside, you know, as far as not a Power 2 conference, but they're not going away. And because their administration is running that conference like it should be run.
I'll give you that for sure. They definitely have been run better. You hit the key part at the end there. I definitely agree that the Big 12 more likely to survive, but as what? This is a totally different conversation than what we talk on this channel. As a group of, as a less than, like to such a large degree. You can talk about them being run better now and this and that, but the point stands, once Florida State and Clemson leave the ACC, it's all over with. The game is over. There's no more game. There's just a G5 game. Just because there isn't, who the Big 12 needs to pluck is Florida State and Clemson or Notre Dame. Those are the three choices left. If they want to have a chance to even, you know, possibly do the merge thing, I think Vince has to bolt out of here. So if you want to go ahead and plug the Garnet and Old show and everything before we get lost in the next conversation, we really appreciate you joining us and sharing in our misery.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, man, when you said, hey, you want to be on the show, yeah, it's gonna be a great time. We're gonna talk about Tavion Wallace, and it's gonna be all good and all great. But anyway, yeah, thanks, George, for inviting me on the show. I appreciate it. Garnet and Old, we have our show on Thursday nights at 7. It's me and my buddy Ryan, and you know, our tagline is no inside info, no contacts, no problem. We just talk about the Noles and talk about everything good about the Noles and everything that maybe isn't so great about the Noles sometimes, like tonight. But the show is Thursday night at 7, and if you don't mind, if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and do it. We're trying to hit 2,000 by the time July 19th hits, and if we do, we're giving away a free video game console of choice plus a copy of College Football 25, but we want to hit the 2,000 mark. So hopefully we'll see a bunch of you there Thursday night at 7.
Y'all go subscribe, because I want my damn PS5. I want to be able to play EA, whatever they're calling it, NCAA 25. So
yes,
appreciate you, Vince, as always.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Vince. Appreciate it, man.
My God. But yeah, just to finish up what I was talking about right there. About that key part that you said there about the, you know, they're going to be on the wayward side. That's just the thing. It's like, that's fine. You can talk the semantics about whether this and that. And yeah, the Big 12, when their new contract goes into place, it will be a little bit more than what the ACC is making now. But here's the problem. What the ACC is making now is a complete fucking joke, and is going to be less than half of what a team needs to compete at the top level.
Exactly.
And that's what the Big 12 will get to, is half. So the question is, if they don't disintegrate, if they stay around, do they plunder the ACC? Do they start competing with the G5 and that becomes the tip top? Or do they compete to send one guy to that playoff every year? That's kind of a decision they're going to have to make there. It's just what I was getting at earlier is I think, like, if a team does end up making it to the playoff and shows that, are they going to stay there? Are they going to develop, get 2 teams, 3 teams? Next thing you know, they're no SEC or Big Ten, but they've got Utah, they've got TCU, and they've got Kansas State. And those are teams that now they're recruiting, now they're doing this. Like, I'm going to have to see it before I believe it. Like, you add an up-and-comer like UCF or Houston, or bring Colorado back from the Pac-12. Like, those things are great on paper. And yeah, I'll give it to you. It may be better than the bottom of the ACC, but a lot of this shit is just perception. It's all 100% perception.
Yeah, it's perception.
Because when you look at NC State, Miami, Clemson, Florida State, I'm leaving one out, North Carolina. Like, as much as even we all pick on these teams and the things they do, they're all still inside the top 20 in recruiting most years.
Yeah.
Like, all of them, 4 or 5 of them. Some of them break in. Like, they're never there. Nobody in that entire conference. So it just makes it tough. But no, we all made great points. And yeah, I hate the ACC's guts. So it's like, it's not like I'm defending the ACC. It's just like, can we just acknowledge the elephant in the room? But they don't want to. Certain people do. But it's one of those things. The only conference in the entire country that, like, really has that pride that's like SEC, and that's it. That's the SEC thing. And that's what sucks so bad, is we should have had a conference pushing that. We should have had, like, some reason to be proud. We should have had all these things, but we just never had that. We never had it. There's no reason. It's like, I want every other ACC team to burn off a cliff. I could never imagine in a million years, like, being so proud that Miami beat one of my rivals, and just, like, to use that to troll every single day, brag about what Florida does against North Carolina. Like,
who cares?
It just blows my mind.
Yeah. I think in that it's a lot of this stuff where we go back 20 years, back with the old Raycom and stuff, man. A lot of tradition tradition can hold you back as much as it can help you. Tradition can be the obstacle to progression. And that's what we're dealing with now, from the recruiting aspect, the NIL aspect, realignment, all of that. People tend to like to hang on to tradition because there's some good things about it, but there's also some bad. And we're seeing a lot of the bad when we start to weigh what you just said, a lot of these obstacles that we have with where we're at now and where things should have said. When you can sit here and talk about what the ACC didn't do, they held on to tradition. And then you move forward and you look at it now, and we're paying for it now because people wanted to hold on to the old guard. And that's what happens, man. You're just in a situation now where we're fighting against tradition and progression. And I just believe that FSU, FSU's in a position now where their board of trustees, their old guard wants to go forward with progression. And and Clemson is taking the same approach. We see the landscape of the sport now. The sport of football and college athletics in general, Title IX, all of that. And you really have to have your cash cows, which is football, then basketball, then baseball. Those are your money makers. And in order to support those who are not your income makers, you have to have your money makers making the most that they can. This is where we're at. So it is what it is, man. We got to move on. But yeah, I agree with you, George, man. The ACC just didn't make the moves they needed to make when they had the time. And they're crying over spilt milk and accusing us of doing it. And it's not it. We just foresee and we see what the landscape of the sport is now. And we just need to move and be progressive.
Facts, man. The ACC never intended to compete with the SEC. They never intended to compete with the Big Ten.
No.
Swofford, that whole group, they just wanted to milk this thing out and get as much money as they could out of Florida State and Clemson. They wanted to lock it down. They wanted to just keep, like you said, I don't even want to call it the tradition, because tradition implies that there was something good there. There was some kind of team thing. So I'll call it the status quo. They wanted to keep the status quo. It just makes you sick, because John Swofford in his younger days in the late 80s, early 90s, when Florida State first came into the ACC and things of that nature, he was talking like you were talking. He was talking like, we got to look forward. It's football. Right now, basketball is king and we're number one, but down the road, I promise you, it's going to be football.
Never changed.
2010, 2011, 2012, Tomahawk Nation, all the fans, everybody screaming, no, don't sign this. This is where it's going, this and that. We settled for a $3 million lead, over the SEC when they were about to redo their deal the next year and jumped 20 million ahead. Everybody knew it. Everybody said it. But, they made these decisions over and over and over and over again that kept effing FSU, effing Clemson over and over and again until we got to this spot. And there's just no reason, like we talked about it with like the Vandy's of the world, but when you want to look at the bottom of the ACC with Syracuse, Wake Forest, now Cal, Stanford, all these teams that have come, it's like there's no reason FSU and Clemson should supply them an ability to make $50 million. Like, how hard would it have been for unequal revenue distribution? Like, how hard would that have been? They really could have done that. They could have used any protocol that they could have won. They could have said wins and losses. They could have said viewership, any of that. Because whatever, Florida State will take a couple bad years. We're going to have more wins than anybody. It's going to be fine. We're going to bring our 15% every year. So it's infuriating. They never wanted to. They never showed any fight. When Florida State was down in the playoff, when Jordan Travis went down, it's like they already decided then. They already knew. They don't care to keep Florida State. We're just going to keep them as long as we can. They were hoping to get that extension. They thought if they could just get to February of 2025, get that extension, it would all be over and Florida State would be stuck. But Florida State's not going to let it happen. So.
Yeah. Going into something you just said, the sustainability of what they were trying to do too. I asked a question. Hold on, I'm trying to think. But I was talking about sustainability when you talked about I just slipped my mind. But I don't know. Yeah, it happens, man. But you was just dialoguing on the programs, the smaller programs, and where they're at with basketball, the sustainability of where the conference was going, because they initially when they brought Florida State in, it was about bringing up the football in the conference, but their mindset was still with that old guard. They still wanted to stick with basketball and push that. And then when they brought in the Syracuses and the Louisvilles and Virginia Tech, it was fine, but then there was no sustainability in those programs over the long haul after the Big East broke up. When we've seen this show before, and it's a tough place to be in when you want to go somewhere, but other people don't want to go. And we all know the story that they've leached off of those who want to go somewhere.
It's just like diluting shares in these companies. That's what they did, adding all these teams. They diluted the shares. If there was only 8 teams in the ACC, it would be a lot easier to get Florida State. What if it was Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami, and 3 or 4 other teams? If they would have kicked teams to the curb, but no, they diluted it. And those final 3 teams, I mean, that's egregious. Like Louisville and whatever you want to talk about, those teams they added from the Big East, that was a different time. Basketball was more important, yada, yada. These 3 recent ones, there's no sustainability to that. It's just a dilution of shares. And that's kind of my point with the Big 12. Like if FSU and Clemson leaves, who are they going to add? It's still going to dilute the league. Maybe a couple, because you're just getting the teams that you're arguing you're better than now. NC State and Louisville and everybody. So more middling teams. And the big thing I have with the Big 12, and they've got their chest pumped out making all these arguments, they haven't played a team without Oklahoma and Texas yet. So let's see this year what happens. What kind of respect do these teams get for their schedules now when they have 2 losses in the Big 12, but it didn't come to Texas or Oklahoma? Because these schools would drop a team to a Kansas or whoever, but they also had a battle with Oklahoma and won that. There'd be a random, team that Oklahoma and Texas lost to every year. They're not going to – who are they going to point to on their schedule? It's going to be like Florida State. Like, sure, you beat LSU in this, but your conference sucks. And it's just –
I get what you're saying. The Big 12 is really without a blue blood or
they
true blood program. They don't have a true blood anymore. I can understand what you're saying there. And then when you look in the ACC, you still have blue blood, true blood type programs. But once they leave, then you just added 3 programs yesterday. You finalized it that their most success in their school's history was during Franklin Delano Roosevelt's tenure. This is what we're talking about. We're just talking about football. We're not talking about endowment. We're not talking about the booster and support and all that. We know those programs have money. But when you're talking about the bottom line, which is football, college athletics, and that's being the cash cow, those programs have not had their success was in the 30s. So, you can't really there's no argument there for them to have. It's ridiculous. You want to be a football conference and want to be taken serious, but you just added 3 programs that collectively don't have the football success over the last 50, 60 years that, your Clemsons or your FSUs just alone have in the last 30 years.
Yeah, we could go through all of it, and that it gets to the marketing of it and everything. When you really look at the nuts and bolts, ACC could have everything in the Big Ten. We got 3-1 on national championships the past 11, 12 years. So it is what it is. The ACC sat on their hands. They didn't want to move forward. They wanted to sit on the status quo. They were going to hire nobody young. They just there's a bunch of old wrinkly jokers that needed to get paid in and/or around North Carolina, and they got paid. They didn't want that money going to Tallahassee or South Carolina. So it is what it is. They can fall with the ship. They can merge with the Big 12, do whatever. This has been a lot of fun. Not as fun as it could have been, unfortunately. Our next show is going to be Friday, July 5th. So hopefully we've got a couple of commits, maybe a surprise here or there to talk about Friday. So we'll see what happens there. It should be Friday, 7 Eastern or 8 Eastern, somewhere around those lines. I will be on the Voice of College Football with Mark Rogers, Chris Breaker, and James Coleman tomorrow, live at 6 o'clock Eastern. And my guy, Deshawn, has a couple shows coming up later this week. What you got going on with your YouTube channels?
Double D's Let's Talk Ball podcast. Actually, we're also doing Double D's gaming, and we're going to try to stream tonight via Twitch. I have to get Cowboy Dame will be the Twitch URL, basically COWBOIDAME 7819. That's the tag right now to find it. We're just doing some test runs. We're going to do a little streaming through StreamYard and talk and basically play a couple of games. And if you care to watch, just hit that tag.
Hell yeah, you heard it here first. I do got to figure out some kind of gaming system so we can maybe play a couple matchups. That would be a lot of fun. But we love you guys again. Wish Jen good health. She got a little scratch on her eye, so she's walking around like a pirate right now. She wasn't able to make it on the show, but we love you, Jen. Hopefully she'll be back Friday. We'll leave you guys. Might as well throw up an ad for the Renegade Roast. They just had like their 8th or 9th show. It's Jen Santee, my amazing co-host, as well as Tiny Hat CEO. Really good show they did. It's already over 1,000 views. A lot of fun. You can check that out. And the dude, the real Chubb Life, FSU versus everyone. Seems like a fitting tune to play right now as we kind of lick our wounds. Tavion Wallace, SPURNS the Knowles for Pig Suey. What the fuck ever, guys. We'll see y'all next time. Go Knowles.
Hey, man. FSU versus everybody. Let's go. First off, fuck Bama in the Roll Tide. Fuck Tuscaloosa in every city that's close by. Bitch ass hillbilly redneck fans. Auburn almost caught y'all slacking like dress pants. Michigan trash, they ain't got a damn chance. Only Wolverine I respect is X-Man. Keen ass coach got exposed, still in plays. Damn right I'm bitter, y'all sweeter than lemonade. Texas ain't shit to rave about. The Longhorns only good at a steakhouse. Had y'all like number 3, I was like, no way. Y'all lost to Oklahoma, which means y'all just okay. And Washington not important. Y'all be some ducks acting like that's vital as an organ. If we played y'all, we kick that ass Chuck Norris. Y'all stay boring. Only thing in that bitch is a forest. Let's set the record straight. Fuck your team if it ain't Florida State. 13-0, undefeated. Damn, what more it take? Denied our presence. That should be a crime. They jealous. Probably get in if the Gators wasn't 5. Miami better not say nada. Last time they won a championship, food stamps had paper.